Kodak Black, the rapper who's slowly been destroying his career. But the question is, how? Born June 11, 1997, since the start of his life, he really been a troublemaker. Back when Yak was in elementary, he used to go to the trap and record music. And by the time he was in 5th grade, he ended up getting expelled for fighting. But his time in middle school wasn't no better. All throughout middle school, he was out robbing, causing fights, and even got arrested for grand theft. Keep in mind, all that going down before he even touched down in high school. But when he turned 12, he ended up joining a rap group that went by the name Brutal Youngins. Then after that, he joined another rap group that went by the name Collins. But in 2013, he would drop his first tape, Project Baby, but that wasn't getting no traction at first. And just 2 years after this tape is where his long relationship with 12 would start. His career ruining relationship with 12, being for real. October 2015, Yak got arrested. He was out at the Pompano Beach and was out there on bad time and got arrested. Robbery, battery, false imprisonment of a child, and possession of some gas. And that sounds so crazy. I couldn't really find no details on the whole false imprisonment of a child thing, but that charge sound insane. But around this time, he was buzzing a little bit. Wasn't nothing crazy, but after he got out, he just went back to making music. And over this next year, his life would change. He had his first hit blow up, No Flocking, and that song really put him on the map. And he was so hot in 2016, he even became an XXL freshman. A freshman on the most iconic list that ever came out, if you're really looking at it. But before the year could even get good for real, he got arrested again. April 2016, Yak was at another beach in Florida and got charged with possession of a weapon by a convicted felon, possession of some gas, and fleeing from officers. But it don't start there. Barely even a month after this, he got arrested again, back in Broward, and they charged him with armed robbery and false in prison. Keep in mind though, like I said, he was hot at this time. All that's going on, he hot now. He done had his hit. He done been on XXL. People know who Kodak is. So right now, this really the point where he got a career. And he ended up getting signed. So he had that label money behind him. And you know how labels get. They seen Kodak as a dollar sign, so they was trying to do everything they can to get him free. And I'm saying this because in August 2016, it came time for him to go to court. And when it was time, they came in deep. All these Atlanta executives walked in vouching for Kodak. Black has a bright future as a recording artist. They basically turned the whole case around and said, look, he got a future now. Yeah, he might have did wrong before, but he didn't know what he was doing. He ain't had no vision. But now he got money in front of him. He got something to chase. And so the judge must have felt what they was talking about, because Yak played no contest to all that, and they gave him a year house arrest but 5 years probation. And at first, the judge was gonna allow him to go on tour until they dug some old cases up. Kodak was in Florence, South Carolina, and got charged with allegedly sexual conduct and 2 counts of possession of gas from Florida. So you could probably see where this is going. Ever since the start of Kodak's career, he had been battling with the law. Even when he had a future full of success, he still couldn't stop getting into trouble. But these court cases keep coming. Month after all that, he was back in the courtroom and played no contest to 2 drug charges and had got sent back to jail for 4 months, but did get time served. Eventually though, in December, they would let him free, and the world was excited. Everyone wanted to see what Yak had in store. Like, just think about the game at the time. How new artists just dropped a hit, people want more music. And so he was doing his thing until February 2017, 2 months after getting released. Kodak got arrested once again for violating his probation. And him getting arrested around this time was so bad because he was in the middle of a tour, and that whole tour had to get delayed by a couple months. So at this point, him fighting with the law is messing up his pockets. But this court date came and it made every case he had going on look way worse. April 2017, court date came up for his sexual conduct case, and they was cooking, bro, in that courtroom. His anger management teacher came in and told the judge how he was acting. Basically, after all them other charges, Kodak had to go to anger management. But when he got in class, that boy was trolling. His teacher said he'd be in class always burping, acting childish, and one of these days she got tired of him. She told him he had to go, but he basically was like, I ain't going nowhere. So she grabbed the phone, starting to call 12, and when she did, Kodak allegedly ran up there and grabbed the phone in her wrist. And you know, the judge hearing something like that made him look at Kodak crazy. 1 month after this though, he had another court date. They sentenced bro to 364 days in jail for violating his house arrest with a chance for early release if he completed a life skill class. And barely a month later, he was out. They gave him 1 year house arrest, 5 years of probation once again. Don't forget though, this still only 2017. At this point, he been in and out of jail. And really, that don't stop no time soon, but when he got out, that boy was going crazy. Something I didn't even say was he went to jail off of Heat, Tunnel Vision. It came out in February, right before he went to jail. And that song was just going so crazy and made all this buzz around his name. So the whole time he was locked up, people was just wanting music. They was like, when Kodak gonna drop again? But back then when he got out of jail, he was just dropping hits on hits. He dropped Rolling Peace, then dropped Painting Pictures. Like, that boy was just going crazy. And for a while, he was just doing his thing, making good music, but that all changed in January of 2018. So a little while before this, Yak was on IG Live and was doing wrong once again. Before I even get into this the downfall of a lot of niggas. Social media, just like what happened with Boosie last week. He went to jail for having a scrap in his back pocket on IG Live. But with Kodak, it was different. He was live and was smoking and had the scrap out. Keep in mind, he doing all this while he know he on probation and a convicted felon. If you ain't know, a convicted felon cannot be around a gun. But the worst part about the whole thing was it was a kid right beside him. He had the scrap out, he was smoking a blunt all in front of a little kid. And when 12 seen that, they was ready. 12 came to his house and arrested him, charged him with child neglect, grant of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and gas possession. All these charges wouldn't stick though. The weapon and gas charges got dropped, but the other ones would. And them charges got him sentenced to 364 days in the pen. But he got time served again. And by the time August came around, he was out. Think about it at this point. He done had all these chances and still ain't learned. But over these next few months, he would get into some more problems. Not with the law, but with a promoter. Basically, he hit Kodak up and wanted to perform. Yak was like, bet, and signed a contract saying that he was gonna perform. He signed a contract saying, I have to perform. But when the time came for the show, Yak never showed up. First, the promoter was like, you know, it's all good. We're just gonna reschedule. Second day come in, Kodak still ain't show up. At this point, they get rescheduled again. Kodak still ain't show up. And by this time, the promoter was tired of all that. He did what he had to do. He sued Kodak, saying him having to do all that rescheduling made him lose over $500,000. But just a few weeks after this, he got arrested again. Yak was coming back to the US from Canada, and when the Border Patrol searched his car, he knew he was cooked. They found a G-lock and some gas. Sometimes I really just wonder, like, what do Kodak be thinking? Why would you try to cross the border with this on you? Like, no one around him said that wasn't a good idea. No one was like, you know what, Yak, nah, we can't do that. That's not smart. We're not gonna be able to get in the country. Nobody thought about that. They just let bro cross the border. But they charged him with possession of a weapon and gas. And Kodak got blessed again. He ended up getting bailed the next day. But trouble keep coming. A few days after this, he was back on tour and was performing. While he was performing though, the FBI snuck in and searched one of his tour buses and found a lot of weapons, drugs, everything. And they arrested some of Kodak crew, but couldn't get to him. But about 2 weeks after this, they would get to him. Right before he got on stage at Rolling Loud, he was arrested for having a weapon. But when he got arrested, they went to the past a little bit. Early into this year, Kodak applied online to get a gun, and he lied on the form. I don't know what he was thinking. He knew they was gonna find out eventually. Like, what do you think? Oh, wow, I put this fake information on here. Nothing gonna happen to me. Nigga, what you mean? You knew it was gonna come. Crazy part is he still got bond. He ended up putting up his house for collateral and was facing 10 years. But later on into the year, he ended up taking a plea bargain where he would get sentenced to 46 months in prison. But Yak wouldn't get back into a courtroom until March of 2020. He pled guilty to having a gun while crossing the border. Then they had the whole line on paperwork on top of that, and he was facing between 2 and 7 years. After this though, he would just sit until early 2021 when it was time for Donald Trump to get out of office. But before he did, he gave out one pardon. He pardoned Kodak Black from most of his charges, but it was one that didn't get pardoned, his sexual case. I think the main reason he got pardoned because leading up to this moment, he was real heavily supporting Trump. Every time he got on social media, I love Trump. Trump my boy, Uncle Trump. He was going crazy, and his Trump support is probably what got him freed. I think he would still be in there to this day if he would have never got pardoned by Trump. But he got real lucky. This was like a chance of a lifetime, right? You would think, right? A person get pardoned by the president after facing all these charges and all these years, they would be like, you know what, bro? I really got to do better. I got to change my life. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Nah, this still wasn't enough for him to learn, because just a few months after getting out, he failed the drug test and got sent to rehab for a few months. And by December, he was finished. But just a month after getting out of rehab, he got arrested for trespassing at the Pompano Beach in Florida. But 2022 started out rough for Kodak. In February, he was just living life. He was at one of Justin Bieber parties. Basically, party was good until someone from Kodak crew got into a fight. They started jumping Kodak mans, and when Kodak seen that, he jumped in. When he did, somebody let shots go. He ended up getting hit in the leg along with 3 other people who also got hit, but everybody ended up being okay. But the cops had eyes on him again. The next time he would get into it with the law again will be in July 2022. He was out in Florida. The highway patrol peeped his window tint was too dark and they pulled him over. And when they did, they smelled gas, giving him a reason to search. And when they did, they found a bag with 31 oxys and $75,000 in cash. And they charged him with trafficking oxys and possession of a controlled substance. Then on top of all that, that. He was gonna get caught either way. This nigga was out driving with no license and his tag was expired. 5 days later though, he was put on house arrest again. But the pills ended up getting cleared though. Turns out Yak was prescribed them earlier that year when he got shot. But during all this bad, he was still trying to do right. He went out and helped nearly 30 families who was on the verge of getting evicted. 28 families was about to get evicted for being behind on rent a few months. I paid what they owed and also paid their rents for the next few months. So they good for the remaining of the year. He been doing good for a while though. Pretty much a year before that, he had gave out air conditioning to families that needed it. But over the next year, he was just doing what Kodak do until February of 2023. As you know, he was on probation. And with his probation, they do random drug tests. And one of these tests he had, he ain't show up. So the judge signed an arrest warrant. And when they caught him, they tested bro, and he tested positive for some fentanyl. But instead of locking bro up, they sent him to rehab again. But all of these arrests lead up to today. 4 days ago, Kodak had a warrant sent out for his arrest. And can you guess why? Not showing up for a drug screen. And dead ass, I swear to God, in the middle of me making this video, this nigga got arrested. But I do think Kodak got something like personal going on, like it's something wrong.
Moving on promotion so they get crazy and all that shit and all that, and you be like, damn, babe. Remember that? And really all you care about is to see like, you fuck something? It don't matter if it's a life or death situation going on.
When this clip dropped, a lot of fans was worried. It was like, bro was on these drugs bad. And you see he keeps skipping all the drug screenings and all that. I do think bro needs some real help though, cause you see rehab ain't been working. They've been putting him in there for years and it ain't make a change. But he also gotta take some accountability. All these chances they done gave him and he keep going right back. You got pardoned by the president, you went back. You got let off on some charges other people wouldn't get let off on, and you going right back. I don't think he realized how lucky he is to be in the position he in right now, to get off on all these charges. And I'm not trying to wish bad on bro, but I do think his luck gonna run out eventually. He gonna end up having to sit if he don't change. Really think about it. Most of his career he spent in jail. Yeah, he might drop some hits here and there, but he never really been able to capitalize on it. I look at it like this: eventually people gonna stop booking him because they don't know if he gonna be in jail or not. Then it just be killing his momentum. He'll have a hit, then got locked up, can't do a proper album rollout or nothing. I do hope Kodak get better and learn from his mistakes.